you are going to have the ability to add this in onto any cycle, and you're going to be able to have that theoretical myogenic component of it lowering myostatin. What is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. I have no ASMR sip today because I'm in a rush, but we got the Spritz Intelligent Neon. Gotta buy it to smell it. All right, today I'm going to be talking about the dark horse again. In my opinion, the next big thing in enhanced bodybuilding overall, as injectable SARMs come back into the mix, despite all the, I don't know where this propaganda comes from. There's propaganda against injectable SARMs to a point where, I don't know, it's just like my best look on this channel. If you're just stopping in, I am currently vlogging. I'm about to jump on a very significant cycle and blast off. And I think injectable LGD will be in the mix because it was my best look. I'll have Andrew throw it up for the 80,000th time. And I just think that when we have DECA still as the staple bulker, which I got nothing wrong with the original gearheads being like, that's tried and true. Yes, it is. I do think Inject LGD may change the game, but there's a lot of issues with injectable LGD because it's, number one, a full binder to the androgen receptor. It's not a partial agonist. So this really comes into play with the hierarchy of all the androgens in the body, with dihydrotestosterone being the most powerful one. You are now exogenously adding in LGD, which is skipping the line essentially and booting DHT off the androgen receptors, causing weird things with basal metabolic rate and other stuff that really no other steroid does that. And it's showcasing how powerful injectable LGD is, that it's booting off DHT, interfering with DHT, and then changing the metabolic rate so bad that I would binge eat when I originally did that cycle. And I've Andrew put in one of the videos in the description if you want to see what I look like at 23 years old on that injectable SARM cycle. That one's like, okay, if you're going to do injectable LGD, it's basically like the main staple. There's not really a more powerful androgen, and you're kind of building the cycle around the injectable LGD, which if I was a traditional gearhead, I probably wouldn't like that, right? So for example, with injectable LGD, I couldn't do a gram of test if I did a big ass injectable LGD dosage daily, because the injectable LGD dosage is going to beat all the testosterone and the 5-alpha reduced dihydrotestosterone to the androgen receptor, causing tons of spillover, PSA raising, but more importantly, the estrogen goes out of whack because the aromatase enzyme has to go through the roof because nothing is making it there because the LGD's, boom, beating everything to the androgen receptor, meaning when you're doing injectable LGD, it's not like you can just throw a gram of test with it unless you're a massive dude with tons of skeletal AR architecture and can saturate all of it. You're normally going to lower the testosterone to under 500 a week and scale the injectable LGD as high as you can mentally tolerate. So that makes it like, okay, if you're gonna do injectable LGD, you're basically doing the whole cycle around the injectable LGD dosage. The testosterone is kind of there as just like the baseline, and you're looking in the growth hormone pathways. And I could see how a traditional gear guy who built an incredible enhanced physique that's better than Russo doesn't want to derail all his tried and true methods of using such a powerful injectable SARM. And these bioavailabilities of these SARMs, really the ones that shine is injectable LGD and YK-11. Now I'm talking about YK-11 in this video because I think it's what the gearheads want. I don't like talking about it because it's so exotic, it's so dangerous, and there's no data around it. However, I may fiddle around with it based on how well my central nervous system tolerates, and I may fiddle around with a very low dose. But when we have these oral bioavailabilities, for example, S23, Osterine, the oral bioavailability must be around theorized 90%. If you inject it, it's no better. LGD and YK-11, LGD seems to be around 40%, and who knows what it is injectable. But anyone who's injected LGD knows, holy shit, like this must be one of the most powerful androgens you can get your hands on. I think with YK-11, oral bioavailability might be less than 20%. Just throwing out a number there. Feel free to argue or link something concrete in the comments and I'll pin it or I'll highlight it or something. But when you inject it, the bioavailability is crazy. The other thing, I'm talking about how LGD is this full agonist to the androgen receptor. It's directly competing with dihydrotestosterone, and it's theorized it's fucking up dihydrotestosterone, which is messing with the whole central nervous system, because the baseline androgen of a male, of a female, is dihydrotestosterone. So if you're saying LGD comes in there, boop, boots that DHT off, the central nervous system is now fully tuned on this LGD instead of dihydrotestosterone. We go in the opposite direction, that if you did DECA only, the main androgen would be dihydronandrolone, which again, the central nervous system would probably androgen receptor remap to dihydronandrolone, or androgen receptor remap to the injectable LGD. This is problematic. This is something you have to think about as you cycle over years and years and years, how these androgen receptor remaps are happening. And this is why a little teenager can't copy this big boy cycle that some open pro took. He can't saturate it. He doesn't have the androgen receptor architecture built up from years and years of abusing this shit. You really shouldn't be thinking in the sense of, okay, you know, this is something I can just add in my gear cycle. No, it's going to impact the whole hierarchy of the androgens you're injecting. YK-11 is not. YK-11 is more like a roid. It's a steroidal structured SARM, looks kind of like DHT. And basically, you are going to have the ability to add this in onto any cycle, and you're going to be able to have that theoretical myogenic component of it lowering myostatin. But if you're doing a traditional bulk, okay, let's say you're doing, I don't want to say DECA, I don't like DECA. We'll say you're gonna do a bulk on a gram of test and 700 to a gram of EQ. If I would add injectable LGD 4033 in there, it would boot all that test and EQ, it would be beating it to the androgen receptor. There'd be all this crazy spillover, and you'd be like online, oh, injectable LGD fucked up my whole cycle, fuck that. That's because that hierarchy's there. YK-11's a partial agonist. When I add it in on big cycles of testosterone, it only complements it. LGD, you're reconstructing the whole cycle around the injectable LGD dosage. And trust me, above 20 mg a day of inject LGD, you know, mentally, do you want more of an androgen? Let's be real. With the injectable YK-11, you could do a gram of test, a gram of EQ, and throw in 5 to 30 a day of injectable YK-11, and it would all be complementing each other, in my opinion, based on my experiences of playing around with injectable YK-11. Now I'll have Andrew go in the description of the video and link up a bunch of injectable YK-11 and injectable LGD 4033 vlogs for you guys to watch. When I was 23, I think injectable YK-11 may be this secret to keeping yourself way leaner in the off season and not training super heavy to get that tissue. Instead of doing the crazy extreme weights, injectable YK-11, whether it be because it's kind of like a DHT like Winstrol, which fucks up your joints, or there's this myogenic component that it's fucking around with the myostatin, somatostatin pendulum, and we're seeing that myostatin is sitting lower with the YK-11, allowing your body to easily gain more muscle. I'll have Andrew throw up the Belgian blue as we use as the example. That's a cow that was myogenically modified. We are temporarily interfering with the myogenic pendulum when injecting YK-11. Who the fuck knows what the long-term side effects of that or the impact on the heart of doing that? But you do know that as you do a steroid cycle, that myostatin creeps up to stop the steroid cycle because your body doesn't know you're bodybuilding. Right? Your body's like, I'm getting too muscular. Holy shit. Like, is there enough food in the wild for me to sustain this muscle? I'm gonna increase myostatin to stop this muscle gain. YK-11 would prolong that. You could argue that adding YK-11 later in the cycle will extend the cycle. You could argue that adding in YK-11 at night will help you grow in your sleep, have myostatin sitting lower in your sleep. And you know that it's a partial agonist. You know it's not going to be, oh my God, interfering with the entire cycle like injectable LGD 4033. You could throw this in on any standard prep gear cycle, on any standard off-season cycle of just traditional steroids, and it's not going to impact the hierarchy. It's actually going to complement. It's also going to make your growth hormone pathway more useful. If you're spending big money on growth hormone, you probably want your myostatin sitting as low as possible, as you're causing tons of hyperplasia, cell replication, aging your body faster for this new permanent tissue. You might as well add that YK-11 in there to try and aid that. Try and, multiply that to a point where this injectable YK-11, I do see it playing a role in the top of bodybuilding eventually, because that bioavailability is so much different in injectable than oral. There's not a lot of injectable available, but I could say that the oral, it's kind of like a gimmick, right? The injectable, it's not like a gimmick. And I have vlogs in my description of this video that you can go watch yourself and see that it's not a gimmick. And I just wanted to highlight that because I may add a little bit of that in. The only thing I'm worried about is my joints, tendons, ligaments. When you are fucking around lowering myostatin, the joints, tendons, and ligaments are suffering. You cannot be like a power lifter training on YK-11. You kind of got to train like a little pump boy bodybuilder when you have the YK-11 in there. I would never, power lift on it, despite it making me hyper aggressive. YK-11 always makes me hyper aggressive. And YK-11 makes me feel strong as fuck, but it makes my tendons feel like they're gonna snap. It makes my joints all creaky and shit. And that could be because it's kind of like a DHT like Winstrol, and it could simply be that. Or it could be that the limited test tube data that we have showcasing the myogenic component is actually working systemically in the body, and you are getting a lower myostatin overall, which is allowing you to grow rapidly. It's also allowing you to be leaner in the off season. It's also allowing you to be leaner as you cut down and hold on to your tissue as you're impacting that myostatin component. It's aiding in the growth hormone pathway. If you're spending big money on the growth hormone pathway, why would you not interfere with the myostatin component if you're already hyper risking your body in general by these extreme performance cycles? I think you should consider that YK-11 could be a game changer, and that these new ones like ACE 82 or whatever, and then the other ACE that's already out there, the myostatin component is going to be a big thing. I think when people want me to weigh in what I thought, and everyone wants me to add and inject YK-11 because they already saw me get crazy results from it. And I did. I will only do it if my central nervous system can tolerate it. My central nervous system is already in a compromised state. However, if I had a elite central nervous system and I was heavily trained and I had multiple steroid cycles under my belt for years, I was fully willing to risk the decreasing my lifespan, living like a lion versus a sheep, with the injectable YK-11. If you're doing a ginormous blast, which is going to fuck up your health no matter what, that YK-11 could come in there and really make a game-changing point. The oral bioavailability of YK-11 is absolute garbage. The injectable version is completely different. It will keep you leaner in the off-season by lowering myostatin theoretically. It will keep you leaner during a cut and help you hold on to your tissue in a cut by lowering that myostatin. When you lower myostatin, you're fucking up your joints, tendons' ability to recover, and you have to keep that into consideration. It is one of the dark horses that's in the new cutting edge performance world. I have no idea how you can talk crap on injectable YK-11. You just haven't played around with it. You're just smearing it for whatever monetary reason. I have a TRT clinic that I'm getting relicensed. I will be legally selling testosterone once it's relicensed. And I have obviously enjoyed SARMs here. We have documented everything under the sun with them. And this injectable YK-11, people wanted me to touch on. I do think you have to err on the extreme side of caution. However, I see all these crazy 2-gram cycles, and I just kind of laugh to myself, because you can go, I'm just going to link these videos down below. You can go watch them, and you can go watch those current guys who state their cycles. And yeah, I was using way less. And I have those big cycles on the table right now to take while I approach 30. And if I took them back then, I probably would have burned my body out already. People think my body is burned out right now. It's not. It's recovering. And I still have these massive blasts. Each blast has to be super hyper calculated, in my opinion. And that YK-11 might come in there and make you, have better results. And it's argued that the myostatin does not go back to normal until over a month after the last injectable administration of YK-11, meaning you could prolong the benefits long after. I hope you guys found this video informative. I will see you guys in my next video.